The sun was just rising over the twin mountains of Velmer 7, casting golden light across the alien city made of crystal towers and glowing bridges. The city was peaceful, its people calm and elegant, but something felt wrong. Hidden behind the beauty was tension in the air, the kind that made soldiers grip their weapons tighter and parents pull their children close. Captain Raynor stood at the palace gate, his human armor scratched from past battles but still firm. He was not supposed to be there. Humans were not allowed near the royal district without a direct order. But Raynor wasn't there for politics. He had one reason only: the princess. Her name was Saralaya. The alien princess with emerald skin and rainbow hair that flowed like living silk. She was powerful, born with psychic energy that could bend weak minds and stop time for a heartbeat. But to Raynor, she was not a weapon. She was kind, curious, and lonely. They had met once, by mistake, during a peace exchange. That one moment had sparked something both strange and powerful between them. But now something had changed. Humans were being blamed for a sudden attack on a nearby moon. The alliance between the two species was breaking. The royals had banned all contact. Saralaya was locked inside the inner palace, watched day and night by her guards. Raynor should have left the planet with his unit. That was the order. But he stayed, hiding in the city shadows, waiting, watching. He knew she would reach out. And she did. It started with a small signal, hidden in the frequency of palace patrol reports. Raynor smiled the moment he heard it, a sequence of tones they had created together during their first secret conversation. She was calling him. He moved through the glowing alleys and sensor-filled towers like a ghost, using old soldier skills to avoid detection. Every step closer to the palace felt heavier. He didn't know what he would do when he saw her. He didn't even know why she called him. But he went. Inside the palace, Saralaya sat alone in her chamber. Her crown lay on the floor. Her eyes stared at the sky through the glass ceiling. She wasn't crying, but something in her chest felt like it wanted to break. She had begged her council to listen. She told them the humans were not behind the attack. But they ignored her. To them, her feelings for a human clouded her judgment. The court called her weak, naive, even reckless. But she wasn't any of those things. She was in love. She had never said it aloud, not even to him. But every time she saw him in her thoughts, every time she remembered how he stood between her and danger during that peace summit, she knew it was more than curiosity. She trusted him more than anyone in her empire. Now they wanted to use her powers for war. She had to choose: stand with her family, or run with the only being who ever looked at her like she was not a weapon. And then, the door clicked. Raynor stepped into her chamber, eyes locked with hers. Neither spoke at first. She was still as a statue. He stood like a shadow. Finally he whispered, "I got your message." Saralaya rose slowly, her voice low. "They are watching me. They will stop us." He reached out his hand. "Then don't let them." She stared at his hand for a long second. Then she stepped forward. She took it. No words. No plan. Just a choice. The alarms screamed before they reached the hallway. Royal guards flooded the corridors with weapons raised. Saralaya didn't let go. She pulled him forward, faster, her power pushing through the guards' mental defenses just enough to slow them. Raynor didn't know where they were going. But in that moment, it didn't matter. She had grabbed his hand, and they ran. The marble floors echoed with heavy boots and shouting voices as Raynor and Saralaya ran through the palace corridors. Lights turned red, warning signs flashed, and the sound of charging weapons filled the air behind them. Raynor pulled her behind a tall pillar, his breath heavy but focused. She looked calm, but her fingers trembled as they gripped his hand. "You were supposed to leave the planet," she whispered. Raynor looked at her, not with anger, but with something deeper. "I couldn't leave you behind." She blinked once, her rainbow-colored hair glowing under the emergency lights. "Then we'll run together." They moved again, faster this time. Saraliah knew the hidden paths of the palace, old escape tunnels, built during ancient wars. One passage was behind the council room. It led deep beneath the palace to an old transport system that hadn't been used in years. But the way was long and full of risks. She didn't care. She had already chosen. Guards blocked the next hallway. Without stopping, Saraliah lifted her hand, her eyes flashing bright violet. A wave of invisible force hit the guards like a storm. They collapsed, their weapons scattered across the floor. Raynor stared for a moment. He had seen her power once, but never like this. She turned to him, her voice sharp. "I hate using it, but I won't let them cage me." Together they entered the narrow side door and vanished into the shadows. The tunnel was old and cold. Pipes lined the walls, and strange whispers echoed through the darkness. Raynor led the way with a small flashlight from his belt. The deeper they went, the more distant the sounds of the palace became. "Why did you do it?" he asked suddenly. She looked at him puzzled. "Why call me?" "You knew this could happen. You could lose everything." Saraliah stopped walking. "Because I've already lost everything." She stepped closer to him. "My people don't trust me. My family sees me as a tool. I tried to bring peace, and they called me a traitor. But when I remembered you, how you looked at me, how you didn't fear me or bow like the others, I felt alive, free." Raynor said nothing, but his silence was full of understanding. They reached a large steel door. Saraliah placed her hand on a glowing panel. It buzzed once and then unlocked. Behind it was an old underground transport pod, covered in dust but still glowing faintly. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed through the tunnel behind them. "Stop where you are!" Raynor turned fast. Behind them were 3 elite guards, their armor polished and their guns aimed. Saraliah stepped in front of Raynor. "Move aside, princess," one of the guards shouted. "You are under protection by royal order." "I never asked for that," she replied coldly. Raynor raised his hands. "Don't do this. No one has to get hurt." "You don't belong here, human," the lead guard snapped. "You broke the law the moment you stepped into this palace." Saraliah's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Then I will break it again." Her eyes flared. The guards hesitated. One fired. Raynor tackled her just in time, the shot hitting the wall behind. A shockwave burst from her body, sending the guards flying into the metal pipes. Silence fell again. Raynor got up slowly. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Are you?" "No," he said. "Just tired of running." Saraliah pressed a button, and the pod doors opened. They stepped inside and sat opposite each other. The doors sealed shut, and the engine hummed a life as the pod began moving through the dark tunnels toward the city edge. Saraliah looked out the window, then back at him. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. Raynor looked into her glowing eyes. "No, not even for a second." And for the first time in her life, the alien princess smiled a real smile. Not one made for the court or the people, but outside the tunnel, the empire had already started its hunt. She was no longer just a princess. She was now a fugitive, and he was now her only shield. The transport pod sped through the underground tunnels, old lights flickering as they passed. Dust swirled inside the cabin, but neither of them spoke. Saraliah sat quietly, her fingers still slightly glowing from the energy she used earlier. Raynor watched her closely. She looked calm, but he knew better. Her whole world had changed within minutes. He finally broke the silence. "Where does this tunnel end?" "There's an old station near the outer cliffs," she said softly. "It was used long ago by the Royal Scouts. Now it's empty." Raynor nodded. "That gives us time, but not much." Saraliah leaned her head back against the wall, eyes half closed. "They'll send tracking units, elite hunters. Some of them have gifts like mine." Raynor leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Then we stay one step ahead. No more palace, no more orders. Just you and me." She looked at him with tired eyes, but there was a spark in them. "You make it sound simple." "It's not," he admitted. "But I'd rather run free with you than live safely without you." The pod slowed down, lights flashing blue. They had reached the end of the line. The doors hissed open, revealing a rusted platform half covered in roots and vines. Above them, the ceiling was cracked, letting in thin rays of sunlight. It smelled of earth and freedom. They stepped out carefully. The air outside was cooler, cleaner. The platform led to a narrow path between sharp rocks. The cliffs of Velmer 7 were beautiful, carved by wind and time, but dangerous. One wrong step could mean death. Saraliah walked with sure steps. "There's a hidden chamber ahead, behind the waterfalls. It has supplies and a beacon. If I can reach it, I might be able to send a false trail to mislead the hunters." Raynor followed close behind. "And if they don't fall for it? Then we keep running." They climbed higher, reaching a small cave where water dripped from the walls. Saraliah placed her hand on the stone and whispered something in her native tongue. The wall shimmered and then vanished. A hidden room revealed itself, lit by soft crystals and filled with old gear. A small table held dried food, energy packs, and a beacon. Raynor started sealing the cave entrance while Saraliah activated the beacon. Her hands moved quickly, coding the signal to bounce across abandoned locations. She was smart, trained in politics and technology, but her hands shook. Raynor came close. "You're doing great." She didn't look at him. "I don't feel great. I feel scared." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I've been scared before. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you care." She turned to him slowly. "I'm not just running from my family. I'm running from the role I was born into. Everything I was trained to be." "You're not a weapon," he said firmly. "You're a person. You chose your own path now." A loud boom interrupted their moment. Dust fell from the ceiling. Raynor ran to the entrance and peeked through the cracks. "They found us," he said, his voice low. Saraliah's eyes turned bright with energy. "Then we hold them off." Raynor loaded his plasma pistol. "No, we escape. Again." They grabbed what they could and exited through the rear tunnel. The cliffs ahead led to a forest valley, thick with glowing trees and soft ground. They ran, ducking under vines and jumping over stones. Behind them, shadows moved not fast but steady. The hunters were close. Suddenly, a sharp sound rang out. A small drone flew above them, scanning with red light. Raynor aimed and fired. One clean shot, and it fell burning. Saraliah smiled. "Nice shot. I had a good reason," he replied, grabbing her hand. They reached the edge of the valley where the trees thinned and wind blew stronger. A sharp whistling sound came from behind. The hunters were no longer walking. They were flying. Raynor pulled Saraliah behind a tree, both breathing hard. "We can't outrun them forever." Saraliah closed her eyes. "Then maybe it's time I show them I'm not scared." He looked at her worried. "What do you mean?" "I won't hurt them, but I can make them see what I feel." She stepped forward, arms raised, her body glowing brighter than ever before. The sky shimmered for a moment as if reality twisted around her, and then everything went quiet. The air froze as Saraliah stepped into the open. Her hair floated gently around her shoulders like strands of light. Her skin glowed with soft green fire. The forest fell silent, no birds, no insects. Not even the wind dared to move. From behind the trees, the royal hunters slowed. Their sleek armor caught the light, their weapons raised, but they didn't fire. Raynor held his breath. He had never seen anything like this. Saraliah wasn't attacking. She wasn't shouting. She was simply standing there, filled with something deeper than power. Something that made even trained killers hesitate. The lead hunter stepped forward. His voice was hard. "Princess Saraliah, You are ordered to return to the palace immediately. This human has manipulated you. You are under royal protection." She looked at him without fear. "No one controls me, not anymore." "You're confused," the hunter replied. "Let us help you." "I don't need your help," she said. "I chose this. I chose him." Raynor stepped out from behind the tree, his pistol lowered, but ready. "We don't want to fight." "But we're not going back." The hunter hesitated, then gave the signal. The team raised their weapons. Ceralia's glow brightened instantly. The air cracked with invisible energy. Trees bent. The earth trembled slightly. She whispered just one word. "Stop," and the hunters froze not by fear, but by force. Her mind touched theirs, not to harm, but to show. Images poured into their heads, memories of how she had been treated like a weapon, locked away from her own people, used as a tool of power. Then images of Raynor saving her during the summit, listening to her, standing by her even now. One of the hunters dropped his weapon. Another stepped back. The leader shook his head, trying to resist. "This is treason." "No," she said, voice calm. "This is truth." The energy faded. The hunters stood still, confused, breathing hard. Ceralia turned and ran back to Raynor, her steps shaky. Raynor caught her before she fell. "That drained you." "I'm fine," she whispered. "But it bought us time." They ran again, moving deeper into the woods until they found a cave hidden behind thick vines. Inside, it was dark but dry. Raynor helped her sit against the wall. He checked her pulse, strong but fast. She was exhausted, not from running, but from using too much of her power. He opened a ration pack and handed her water. She drank slowly, eyes half closed. "I thought they were going to shoot," she said. "They almost did," Raynor replied. "But you changed their minds. Only for now." Raynor looked out at the entrance. "We'll keep moving at night. They won't stop forever." "I don't want to run forever," she said suddenly. "I want to stop. I want a home. Somewhere I can be myself." He turned to her, kneeling down. "Then we'll find one. Somewhere far from this empire, far from royal rules. Just us." She smiled weakly. "You really believe that?" "I do." She reached for his hand. "Even if I'm hunted forever?" Raynor gripped her hand gently. "Even if the stars fall, I'll be right here." The forest outside grew darker as the sun dropped behind the cliffs. Strange glowing plants lit the area softly, giving the cave a calm, otherworldly feel. They sat close, wrapped in shared silence, hearts slowly beating back to peace, but deep. In the royal city, others were not at peace. The royal court had received news of the failed capture. They were furious. The Empress herself slammed her hand on the council table, her eyes burning with rage. "She betrayed her own blood," the Empress said. "And for what? A human?" One of the advisors bowed low. "Shall we send the Omega unit?" The Empress didn't answer right away. Then slowly she nodded. "Send them. I want her brought back alive. But the human, make sure he doesn't live." Back in the forest, Ceralia suddenly looked up, her eyes wide. "They're not done," she whispered. Raynor felt a chill run through his spine. "What do you feel?" She closed her eyes. "Something worse is coming. Faster, deadlier. They won't talk this time. They'll kill." Raynor stood and loaded his pistol again. "Then we don't hide anymore." She rose beside him, her strength returning. "Then we fight." This time, they would stand their ground. The forest was quiet again, but the air had changed. It was heavier, colder, like the planet itself was warning them. Raynor stood just outside the cave, eyes scanning the trees. His pistol was fully charged. He had checked it 3 times already. Ceralia was behind him, breathing slowly, her hands glowing faintly as she prepared herself. They both knew this wasn't like before. The ones coming now were not palace guards. These were hunters trained to kill. A deep humming sound started in the distance. The leaves trembled. Animals ran from the area. Saraliah stepped forward. "That's an Omega-class drop engine." "They're close. How many?" Raynor asked, gripping his weapon tighter. "I can't tell. Their minds are shielded." They moved together, leaving the cave behind and heading toward the higher cliffs. If they could reach the mountaintop, Saraliah might be able to send a stronger signal to one of the neutral planets. Maybe someone would help. But it was a long climb, and the Omega unit was already landing. A large dark shape appeared through the trees, a ship shaped like a dagger cutting through fog. Its engines hissed as black-armored soldiers jumped down, moving in total silence. They had no lights, no spoken orders, just hand signals and deadly precision. Raynor and Saraliah ran. Blaster fire cracked through the trees. One shot burned a burned tree right next to them, sending bark and fire flying. Raynor pulled her down behind a stone. "We can't outrun them." "Then we make them chase us," Saraliah said. She focused her energy into the ground. The forest responded. Roots twisted upward. Branches grew thicker. Trees closed around the path behind them. A natural barrier formed in seconds, slowing the soldiers. Raynor helped her up. "Nice trick." "I'm not finished yet." They ran again, climbing the rocky trail. The sun was rising now, throwing orange light across the cliffs. Ahead of them was a narrow bridge made of stone, old and unstable, but the only path to the peak. Raynor stopped. "We cross and collapse the bridge. That buys us time." Saraliah nodded. Together they ran across the thin stone bridge. Each step made it crack and shift, but they made it to the other side. Saraliah turned and lifted her arms. The bridge cracked, then shattered, falling into the deep canyon below. For a moment, it felt like they had a chance, but then something dropped from the sky. A single Omega soldier landed right in front of them. Taller than the rest, covered in black and red armor with no visible face. He held a long energy blade in one hand, his other arm already aiming a blaster. Raynor stepped forward, gun raised. "Stay behind me." Saraliah didn't listen. She stepped beside him. The soldier moved faster than anything Raynor had seen. In 1 second, he was in front of them, swinging the blade. Raynor blocked it with his arm guard, sparks flying. He fired, but the soldier dodged like a shadow. Saraliah lifted her hand and pushed a shockwave forward, throwing the soldier back. He rolled but landed on his feet, silent and deadly. "This one doesn't feel," she whispered. "No fear. Number. Doubt. Just orders." Raynor took a deep breath. "Then we break the orders." They fought together, Raynor firing precise shots, Saraliah using her power to trap and confuse. But the soldier was strong. He hit Raynor hard in the chest, knocking the wind out of him. Saraliah screamed and struck with a pulse so bright it lit the whole cliff. The soldier stumbled, armor cracked. Raynor stood up, blood on his lip. He looked at Saraliah, her eyes wide with worry. "We end this, now." The soldier charged again. Raynor threw his pistol aside and tackled him over the edge. Both fell, grabbing at the rocks. Saraliah screamed and ran to the edge. Raynor was holding on with one arm. The soldier dangled below him, trying to climb. Saraliah reached down, grabbing Raynor's hand. "Let go," he said through his teeth. "I'll pull us both down." "I won't," she cried. "I won't lose you." Her power flared through her arm. With a shout, she pulled Raynor up with strength no one thought she had. The soldier's grip slipped. He fell, disappearing into the mist below. Raynor collapsed beside her, breathing hard. "You saved me," he said. She looked at him. "You saved me first." They didn't have much time. The rest of the Omega unit would still come. But they had survived the strongest. One, and something had changed between them. This was no longer just escape. This was love. And it was worth every fight. The wind howled across the cliff as the sky above turned golden with a new day. Saraliah and Raynor stood at the peak, bruised, bloodied, and silent. The body of the Omega soldier was gone in the fog far below, but the threat wasn't over. More would come. Saraliah could feel it deep in her mind. A storm approaching, filled with voices and cold orders. They would not stop. Not now. Not after she had broken everything the Empire stood for. Raynor looked out over the valley. How far is the nearest neutral planet? She pointed to the sky. If we can send a signal now, we might get picked up within a day, but only if someone is listening. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. They'll listen. We'll make them. Saraliah nodded and walked toward a flat part of the rock. She placed her palm on the ground and closed her eyes. The crystals in the mountain responded, rising slightly to form a natural beacon platform. Her fingers moved in the air, tracing ancient patterns. A light pulsed upward, brighter than the sun, shooting into the sky like a call for help. Back at the royal palace, alarms lit the council chambers. She activated the beacon. A voice said. The Empress stood tall in the center of the room. Shut it down. We can't, the advisor said. It's powered by the deep core of Velmer 7. No signal jammers can stop it. The Empress turned slowly, her expression cold. Then prepare for war. On the cliff, Saraliah fell to her knees after finishing the signal. Her energy was nearly gone. Raynor caught her before she collapsed. You did it, he said. She looked up at him, her eyes weak but filled with peace. Now it's their choice. Help us, or watch their future break. Suddenly, a sharp sound came from behind. A ship small and fast was rising from the forest below. Raynor reached for his weapon, but Saraliah touched his arm. Wait, it's not one of theirs. The ship hovered above them and slowly lowered onto the peak. The side opened, revealing an older alien woman in a pilot's uniform. She had silver hair and eyes like Saraliah's. You really are your mother's daughter, the woman said. Saraliah stood, shocked. Aunt Vera? The woman smiled. I saw your signal. I left the Empire years ago. I knew one day you'd need me. Raynor watched quietly. Saraliah stepped forward and hugged the woman tightly. I didn't know if anyone would come. You sent the truth into the sky, Vera said. That's louder than 1,000 lies. They boarded the ship. Inside was old tech, patched walls, but safety. Vera flew fast, rising high into the clouds. The planet below grew smaller. Raynor sat beside Saraliah, who leaned her head against his shoulder. We're not going back, are we? Never, he said. You're free now. She turned to him. Not just free, I'm with you. He held her hand tightly. Always. As the stars stretched before them, Saraliah felt something she hadn't. In years, hope. She had run from a cage, fought her own people, and almost lost everything. But in doing so, she found someone who saw her, not as a princess or a weapon, but simply as a person. Somewhere far ahead was a new world waiting. No palace, no crowns, no rules, just a girl with power, and a human who chose her without fear. Together, they would build something no empire could destroy. Not a throne, but a future.